I did, I read it too quick.
Mountains.
You take care of the road construction.
How was the chicken feed?
And I'm all over.
A lot of chickens went out the door? Or maybe they didn't even make it to the door. I didn't make it to the door, did they? Boxes? That had to been a little cold cooking on Friday, wasn't it? Or Thursday?
Yeah. They wouldn't know.
I was going to be the last ones to ask that question.
Oh, it's the younger guys that have to cook, huh?
Well, I know it's kind of like the same crew all the time, isn't it? Pretty much who does the cooking. The good ones. Well, if everyone would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, we can get going.
Flag of the United States. Republic for which it stands.
Okay, first thing is to approve the agenda. Does anyone have any changes or corrections or any additions they'd like to make to the agenda? I guess then I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Seconded by Mark Bartuszczyk. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, the agenda is approved. First thing in the agenda, I guess, Chris, it's you on the resolution to start the bidding process for the 2015 CIP project.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Yes, somewhat of a formality, but again, part of the 429 process is to basically approve the plans and authorize the advertisement for bids. As noted in your agenda report, again, by statute, will be advertising in the city's legal publication, which is the New Prague Times. In addition, we'll be advertising on MnDOT's, it's called e-advert. It's because this is a state aid project and New Prague's a state aid city. We can advertise through their website, as well as all our bidding processes goes through our website and the Quest CDN website. So that's where most of the contractors find out about it. We're proposing a bid opening on Friday, March 27th at 10 a.m. And then it will come before you at the following council meeting, which is on April 6th, for your consideration. Should note that we are at about the end of this month, we will be sending out a notice to all the residents to, we'll have an open house that's scheduled for March 12th, tentatively on March 12th from 5 till 6:30, kind of to give our residents a last chance to come in, take a look at the plans and what's proposed with the project. And we don't seem to get a lot of turnout, but again, we feel it's kind of that last chance for people to find out about the project. Again, we're looking at this project being about a 10-week window of construction. We're going to give the contractor a little flexibility of when they actually start it. We're looking probably either between about the 1st of March till about the 1st of June that they can pick when they want to start, and then once they start, we're looking at a 10-week window where the bulk of the project work will happen and be substantially complete. And then probably wait a little period of time before things get paved, which would be probably in about September, October. We're going to we'll get the first layer down early within that 10-week window, and then wait about 6 weeks before we put the final lift on, just to give some stuff time to sit before the finish goes on. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. I guess any questions? Otherwise, again, for your consideration is the resolution before you.
Any questions? Okay, I guess I'll look for a motion to approve going out for advertising, going out for bids.
So move. Second.
Motion by Dave Bruzek, second by Mark Bartuszczyk. Any further comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition?
Aye.
Okay, passes 4-1. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we do have a few representatives here of the New Prague Fire Department. If you guys would be so kind to kind of, Gary, if you just kind of want to give us a quick couple-minute song and dance, and on
We're
what
now
you're-
on TV.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm glad you showered today, though. That's nice of you.
That, just for you guys. Here on behalf of the New Prague Fire Relief Association, we are requesting an annual pension benefit increase. Existing benefit amount is $3,050 per year, and we are requesting an increase to $3,375 per year. Our current pension balance supports this amount with a contribution which is now currently split between the city and the rural association, about $4,200. So it'd be split equally, about $2,100. Those are estimates based on what the market has done in 2015 and to date. So at this point, the market doesn't retract. I would anticipate there would be no contribution requirement for 2016. Last pension increase was in 2008. At that time, it went to the $3,050 per year, per year of service. I think before you in your packet, you had received some background information as far as what the annual contribution from the city has been in the past number of years, as well as the increases that the pension has received since year 2000. At this point, the Rural Association contributes equally to the contributions, and they have previously approved their increase to the $3,375 per year back in January or early February here.
Okay. Mike, would you like to add
Gary,
anything?
just a quick clarification. There is no required contribution for 15.
That is correct.
The estimate on the change, if there was a slight one, based on the best available information, would be for 16.
Again, that is correct.
Okay,
Yes.
I think you had them.
Okay.
I think you had them flipped. I'm just clarifying that. The rural contribution, they in 15 here are at 80% of their 50% share, and there's no contribution. When we hit 16, then they'll be at the actual 50-50, that the phase-in was over 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16.
Okay.
Gary is correct in all the other information that he's provided to the council. It was last changed by the city council in 2007, effective January 1 of '08. No changes since then. I did include in the same information that we provided you back in August, where it showed the city's contribution for 15 was $0. And council committee comprised of former councilmember Sean Ryan and the mayor met with 2 representatives off the Rural Fire Executive Board. We had 2 meetings taking a look at this, and at the conclusion of that, the group recommended back to the Rural Fire Association and now to the council that be increased from the $3,050 to the $3,375. Rural Fire met in January, and they're recommending approval to you. There's no legal requirement that they be included or part of this, but because we've gotten them involved in the financial participation, where eventually anything that we're required to legally do, that they're willing to split 50-50, they wanted to have a say in the participative processes if we were going to ask them to participate financially. So it's an indirect involvement, but still nonetheless, they're voicing their commentary to you.
Which I think is very fair, and any questions at all for Gary or Mike in regarding this? Now, this will become effective immediately, correct?
It would be effective March 1st, 2015.
March 1st, okay. Any questions? What's that? Okay. If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the benefit to the new requested amount of $3,375 per year.
A second.
Second by Pat Scripture. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes. Thank you,
for your
guys.
support. Thank you.
Thanks again for your great work, and it was great chicken barbecue the other night. Next, I think, Ken, you're up. Our favorite subject.
I have a short PowerPoint to go over the summary of the amendment to the zoning ordinance for exterior storage, generally speaking. A little background information. The topic was actually started discussion with the Planning Commission back on August 27th of 2014. We had sent a number of violation letters out for recreational vehicles that were over 25 feet in length, which was our ordinance limit at, which is currently in place. If they're over 25 feet long on a property in a residential area, they received a letter. We sent over 25 of those letters. So that got a lot of feedback from RV owners throughout the city that received the letter and sparked that initial discussion. After that Planning Commission review, it was kicked back to the City Council at the September 2nd meeting, and a motion by the council at that time was to have the Planning Commission review the subject and come up with some workable language and to have better definitions in the ordinance. That followed up with, we didn't have an actual public hearing, but we did notify all the people that received letters as well as other people that had expressed interest and called looking for information about the topic. And we had at the 24th of September a Planning Commission, almost like a listening session from various people, really to kick off the process of amending the ordinance for Section 702, which is titled Exterior Storage. And bulk of the comments at that time were in regards to how when the ordinance was put into effect back in about 20 years ago to today, that RVs and campers had gotten a lot bigger than they were at the time, and was really noted in the fact that 25 feet for an RV was not very large. So we had a lot of comment about that. We had some other issues kind of crop up with the Planning Commission during the 2 months, October and November, and the issue was finally brought back up with the Planning Commission at their December 17th meeting to review some draft language after looking at a number of other cities' ordinances. But again, we were looking to develop definitions and language that would fit the city of New Prague appropriately based on the feedback we had received. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on the language that you see for the most part in your packet here tonight. One major thing that was brought up, we did have there was more than 4 people at the public hearing, but 4 residents in particular did provide comment in regards to the recreational vehicles, particular to those that are used for camping, and that some of these people use their campers and RVs year-round. And they had asked for language to be added that would allow them to remain on their driveways during winter months. And it had been written that certain summer items were allowed in the driveways during summer months, and then certain winter items would be allowed only during the winter. And the request that they made again was that the campers, if you can habitate the item for camping purposes, that they be allowed to have that even during the winter. So essentially year-round is what they were asking for. The Planning Commission did agree that the proposed language should be modified to allow RVs and equipment used for camping purposes year-round on driveways, which is basically in between the road and the house on that driveway. And that is the language that was forwarded to you tonight for consideration. And of the 4 people at the meeting, it was a unanimous vote. I'll move along here to the current ordinance language. The exterior storage language provides a number of things that are allowed on a residential property, including laundry, recreational equipment, without a definition, I should note, construction and landscaping materials, etc. And then notes that storage of boats and unoccupied trailers less than 25 feet was permissible. And that, again, the length limit was the driving factor for the discussion of the amendment. So moving along to the proposed language, adding an expanded definition of exterior storage by adding the statement, which is underlined here that you can see on the PowerPoint. It included keeping of recreational vehicles or recreational equipment for the personal use of property, of the property owner, excuse me, or resident in a residential zoning district. Previously, exterior storage did not specifically note that recreational equipment or vehicles was part of that definition, so that helped clarify that. And then we added 2 definitions, and looking at a number of definitions from other cities, these are pretty much standard language. Recreational vehicle is defined as a motor vehicle which is self-propelled on its own chassis. So these would obviously be your large motorhomes that are not trailered or attached to another vehicle to be moved. And again, as I noted here in the definition, motorhomes, converted trucks or buses, but excludes vehicles designed for commercial, industrial, or agricultural use. Recreational equipment definition includes things such as boats, boat trailers, boat lifts, rail systems, travel trailers, camping trailers, truck toppers, fish houses, etc. Again, any item that is not self-propelled on its own, or an item that sits on a trailer to be transported elsewhere. Going through the proposed language, so this is part of section 702 of the ordinance, basically erasing everything that we had in that ordinance. You can see the struck out language here and replacing that with the following language. The first part of the ordinance here gets at basically everything not included in the recreational equipment or recreational vehicles. So your laundry drying equipment, play equipment, sandboxes, swing sets, construction and landscaping materials, ag equipment, off-street parking of motor vehicles, and firewood. And none of this is particularly new language, just organized a little easier to read and a little more detailed information. This is where the language becomes new. The recreational vehicles and equipment, as defined in section 302, may be parked or stored outside a residential district, provided that it's operable, doesn't need repair, and that was a big topic among everybody that came to the meetings. Make sure it's not junk or immobile in any way. And it has to be registered to the owner or occupant of the property. We don't need residential homes becoming storage areas for other people's equipment. Noting a principal structure must first be located on the lot, and this had to do with the fact that we do have a number of vacant lots remaining yet in the city, and don't want people buying them up to simply rent out and store RVs and other equipment on them. Noting that items located outside of a required minimum front setback, which again is typically that 30 feet between the front property line and where a house can be located, that they have to be located outside of that area, and if they're located within a public utility easement, that they would basically have to move those if work is required to be done at any point. And that's just to accommodate the utility companies, whether it be city utilities or some private utilities that may have utilities located there. Now this is where we get into the language where it gets a little wordy, where we get into defining summer use items, being allowed to be parked in a driveway between the house and the street between April 1 and October 31. And we specifically list items that are only usable in the summer months, such as boats, personal watercrafts, and similar items. And then for winter use items, November 1st through March 31st, including but not limited to snowmobiles, fish houses, and other similar items that were only to be used in cold weather months. And noting that during those months that they're allowed, they can be parked on an established driveway within that front setback, so again, between the house and the road. And then there's some more provided that language that the item has to be kept entirely on the vehicle owner's property, can't obstruct the sidewalk. That was one of the issues we had with some of the vehicles when the letters went out this fall, that they were crossing over on the sidewalk, precluding people from traveling freely along the sidewalk system. And then finally, this is that extra language that was added, noting that recreational vehicles and recreational equipment used for a habitable space for camping purposes are allowed to be stored year-round on an established and paved driveway within that minimum front yard setback. So again, allowing campers and RVs on the driveway between the house and the street year-round. Another wordy section of the ordinance, and again, I should point out that this language was reviewed by Scott Riggs, and we talked about how wordy a number of these things were, but ultimately felt it was necessary to keep the language this way because of the number of exceptions and other clarifying language. So this is a statement saying that your items have to be parked on a concrete, bituminous, or gravel surface, and where it gets wordy is that you can't have a gravel driveway in the city on a property that is being constructed new. So what this is saying that you can have it parked on a gravel surface, however, that's only allowed in a backyard of a property. And the other exception here is that if you have items under 20 feet in length, they can be parked on your lawn, but in the side of your house or on the backyard of your property. So smaller things such as small boats, maybe snowmobile trailers or a utility trailer would be some examples of that. And then finally, getting to the, yep.
What you're saying is if someone has a spot beside their garage and it's gravel, that is not allowed.
No, that would be allowed. Where we don't allow gravel is in that front yard setback area between the front of the garage and the street,
Okay.
where we do require a paved concrete or bituminous surface. So any place but that, gravel is allowed. And that's really an aesthetic thing that was put in the ordinance, actually only about 5 years ago now, that we precluded gravel driveways on that front part of a property.
Okay.
And then the final exemption here is that you can't exceed 40 feet in length for the items, and as I noted before, our minimum front setback is actually 30 feet, so most of the time 30 foot is going to be the limit because you won't be able to physically fit anything between your garage and that front property line without crossing over into the right-of-way or sidewalk, so that's probably more of a limiting factor, but 40 feet's the ultimate number here in case your house happens to be set back a little further, and providing for some exceptions that if you do have a longer than 40-foot camper, you obviously need to have some time to load it up, and this provides for an 8-hour exemption period, essentially for loading and unloading. And if you have something, one of these RVs or trailers larger than 40 feet, it may be permitted by conditional use permit, and in that case, they will have to, the applicant would have to demonstrate that the item is limited from the view of neighboring dwellings through screening, whether it be fencing or plantings of shrubs or trees, however that might work best in that particular property. To obviously be set back from neighboring dwellings as well. So those are some of the criteria that would be reviewed with a conditional use permit request if you want to have an item over 40 feet in length on your property. So that is the language that the Planning Commission developed for your review here tonight. The recommendation is to have the City Council obviously discuss the language and depending on your thoughts on the language here, hold the first reading of the ordinance at tonight's meeting, and the earliest this could move forward for potential adoption and a second reading would be at the March 2nd meeting. So I'll stand for questions. Again, I apologize for some of the slightly wordy language, and Scott and I had gone over this and couldn't make it a whole lot clearer than what you ended up seeing here in front of you tonight. So,
when you're dealing with lawyers, you can't make anything simple. Sorry, Scott.
So Ken, now obviously these new modern fish houses, people do use them as campers per se. So how is that? You know, if you got someone who complains, well, Joe Blow's fish house is in his driveway all the time, and my fish house isn't, but it's on wheels.
and that's one of the things the Planning Commission talked about is, you know, you're getting into a little bit of a gray area by allowing that, and they'd have to provide some proof that it is a is set up to basically provide a living quarter, and whether that have, you know, some sleeping quarters in there, bunk beds, a bed, whatever, and maybe a kitchenette area. We talked about potentially defining that further, and yeah, you could have any number of variations on that, but I think by and large, the people that were looking for that language, not to say that people wouldn't take advantage of it, are those that strictly had campers that, more for a convenience sake, didn't necessarily want to keep it on their yard or in their driveway year-round, but that for that sake of, you know, having it there for maybe a week in case the weather would be good, that they could basically pack up and go without having to dig it out of the backyard out of 4 feet of snow, in that type of situation. So that was really the discussion that was on that. But no, certainly would not appreciate if people were trying to, you know, make an argument that, you know, somebody that clearly was not a recreational camping vehicle be used that way. But, you know, I guess it could happen. But hopefully that would be the
Cross
exception.
that bridge
not
when
the
it
rule.
comes to it.
Yeah.
So Ken, as I understand this, any pop-up camper, anything that's less than 40 feet, you could put in your backyard over winter, even though you're not using it.
That is correct. Yep. And that would basically go for any of these items that is
right.
under the 40 feet, yes. Whether it be anything that falls under that definition of the RV or the recreational equipment.
And you could also put it on the side of your house?
It could be on the side, yeah, anywhere rear or side. It's the front yard, that driveway space is really what ends up being, falling under those seasonal time limitations.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
I'm glad you went through this because until you did, I was having a little bit of trouble with some of this wording. I wasn't quite sure which way this thing went. Sorry.
No, I agree. Scott and I had the same conversation, and we thought, you know, there's really no better way we can really do this without making it even more confusing, because we tried.
Okay.
That's just best we could do. So, too many exceptions and things.
Okay. Any other further comment?
That I think we need to dispense with the reading again.
Okay. So, Pat, do you want to make a motion then to dispense with the reading and make this the first reading of ordinance?
Okay, so moved.
Okay, motion by
Second.
Pat Scripture, second by Mark Bartuszczyk. If there's no further comment, all in favor of the dispensing of the reading of the ordinance and approving this as the first reading, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay. Very good, Ken, thank you. Hopefully this will continue to improve the situations. Are you going to do or who's going to do the lawn spraying?
I've got it.
You got the lawn spraying, huh?
Not by choice, but since we do the licensing out of our office, I could turn it over to Mary Jo. She might like to take it, but I might.
Probably no more than that.
What we have tonight is a proposal to modify the language in the city code, specifically section or chapter 114.03, relating to the chemical lawn spraying firms and the requirement to provide a performance bond for their activities under the ordinance. Is that we've had some difficulties in recent years here gaining compliance, and I think part of it's economics, part of it's by definition the fact that it's a performance bond. The ordinance that you have that has been the guide for some time, since about January of 1989, to the best of our knowledge, really hasn't been modified or changed. And the difficulties we're getting is the compliance and the submittal of a $1,000 performance bond. We've had people that have submitted a $1,000 license bond. And so what I did is, based on inquiries from a number of the chemical lawn spraying firms this last year, have attempted to work with the city attorney and our insurance agent, trying to take a look at what's a better way to handle this or resolve working with it. And really what you're looking at in that section 114, under Chapter 114, under .03, a bond requires, it says a performance bond in the amount of $1,000 shall be submitted with the application, and the bond shall be conditional upon compliance with the city regulations. And when you start to take a look at that, the difficulty is that you've got different size providers in the chemical lawn spraying, and providing this $1,000 bond. Normally, a performance bond is linked, as we talked between the three of us, is linked to a specific job or contract that we would be involved with if we're requiring a performance bond, i.e., Chris requires a performance bond from the contractors to build the projects that we do every summer. The intent there is if they don't actually finish the contract that they have with us to build that street or the utilities, then we've got a way to go back to the bonding company to hopefully make a claim on them to pay us the dollars necessary to finish that project. The difficulty with most of the lawn spraying stuff is that we're not involved in the contracts between the homeowner and the chemical lawn applicator. So in taking a look at this, there's a number of them that are complaining about that it's too costly, too difficult to get this performance bond. And so we talked about what other alternatives could we look at, and the license bond is somewhat similar but slightly different, and that's to ensure compliance with the ordinance requirements of the city, but really doesn't help the homeowner if something goes awry, if they overspray or do something of that nature. And as we took a look at it in reviewing what the state requirements were on the insurance, is that it appears that it's $100,000 per occurrence, $300,000 per aggregate, and $50,000 for property damage, and trying to provide an alternative as to what might be a more economical way to deal with that, and in taking a look at what would be better for the city, that our real goal is to, number one, ensure that in order for them to do lawn applications, they have to provide proof of a chemical application license from the state of Minnesota so that we know that they've met those requirements. But in the end, I think our biggest primary concern is that if something does go awry with a homeowner and there is overspray or damage to either shrubs or other neighboring properties or those kind of things, are we better served with a performance bond or maybe increasing or providing our own insurance standard? And so collectively, through the discussion with the city attorney and Chuck Tupi, our insurance agent, his recommendation was to provide in the alternative to the performance bond, leaving that in place, that they've got the choice to do that however expensive it is, and the alternative is that they really could provide an additional insurance requirement, that they provide proof to the city that their insurance at least is $300,000 per occurrence, $600,000 per aggregate, and $100,000 per property damage, so that we know that there's coverage there, that if something happens, that $1,000 isn't going to go very far for us to ensure that they're compliant with our ordinance. And as I said, we're really trying to ensure that they're really that they have the insurance behind them, that if they do damage or cause a problem, that there's a way that a homeowner or an adjacent property owner can make a claim against that. And so what we talked about was increasing or providing an alternative of insurance certificate to the city at a higher limit than what they provide to the state to get their license, because you obviously have different vendors at different levels. And so if we're really truly interested in providing an alternative, that Chuck Tupi, in his opinion and in our discussion, thought that the insurance requirement would be much better than an actual performance bond. It would provide the city with better coverage in that sense for dealing with any incidents or activities that would occur that way that might cause damage in excess of $1,000. So what you have in front of you tonight is a draft amendment to the ordinance that deletes the current language and replicates it with basically the option is that they can either provide a performance bond in the amount of $1,000, or in lieu of that, a liability insurance policy or certificate with the $300,000, $600,000, and $100,000 as I've just described. Chuck said that that's pretty middle of the road in the sense, he said, and we looked at it, a number of the vendors, the larger vendors might have something, with a $2 million aggregate with $1,000 or $1 million per occurrence, and have much higher limits that way, but at least ours is more reasonable and with an approach from somebody that might run a smaller operation. So they can either provide the performance bond as we've had, or in lieu of their provided certificate of insurance with those limits.
Mike, do you know any of the, say, local applicators that couldn't meet this or don't have it at this point?
Mary Jo has been the one that's kind of handled that. I don't have the list where I have each one of them, but it's been a kind of across the board that I heard personally from about 2 or 3 of them last year, some outside the city limits, some local in that sense. And so we tried to at least banter back what some of the options might be to try to meet that middle of the road, so to speak.
You said these are higher than what is required for them to have a license?
The state
this-
license, state's pretty minimal. The
Okay.
state is 100, 350.
Okay.
And we're proposing a 300, 600, and a 100,000.
Which probably wouldn't cost that much.
No, and talking to Chuck, that's the very easy thing to do is to just change the limits versus having to spend additional dollars. Their difficulty is the cost difference in trying to provide the performance bond is in many cases it's based on gross sales and what they're doing, and they don't want to have to go through the accounting and the proof of what's necessary to get that all assembled to go get a performance bond, because as Chris would tell you, at least in our construction projects, that's a pretty major element and a cost item in those construction contracts, because we're typically dealing with construction contracts in the range of $1.5 million to $2 million to ensure that there's performance of the adhering to that contract.
So when they come and get a permit to spray, do they just show you your Minnesota license? And they don't have to show anything else, because if they have their Minnesota license, they've already meet the criteria that they've set. But now we're going to require them to have a certificate of insurance with these
Either
new
or.
limits?
Either that, or they can
Ye-
still go get the performance bond.
Right.
So they've
Okay.
got a choice.
For this certificate of insurance, is the city going to be listed as additional insured? So that it's my understanding then the insurance company lets the additional insured know if anything's canceled or payments not made? Or are we just going to have them bring a certificate?
I can check. Scott didn't ask that one, but in many of our different contracts that we enter into, where the insurance is for us, typically we're named as an additional insured. I can get that clarified.
Do we charge a fee at all to process this whole?
$30.
30, okay. So either way, if they have the insurance or they're gonna pay the 1,000,
Either they
Either way,
provide
it's
proof of the bond
$30.
or the certificate of insurance.
Any other questions? Amy, do you want to wait to move on this until we know about the
Well, what you
additional?
can do is that we can take a look at that issue and then make the amendment to that when we bring the final ordinance back to you, we can, we'll go take a look at that with Scott and take a look at whether he makes revisions to the final ordinance.
Okay, so you're asking for the first reading?
Introduce the first reading, yes.
Introduce the first reading.
is there a timeline that you're trying to, no?
To the current schedule that introduced it tonight, adopted March 2nd, and we got to publish.
Because usually, when do they usually come in, probably?
But they've already started contacting
Oh,
us.
yeah, I suppose.
So we'll let them know that that change is coming, and, we can work with them in our case.
Because right now, it's the it's the $1,000 bond. performance bond?
correct.
So the ones that probably have applied already have got their permit, have produced that? Or we haven't issued any permits yet?
No.
Applied yet.
Okay. Okay.
It's not on it's really, they can't start to do commercial applications to residential or otherwise until they have the license from the city. So it's not like it's a January to December 31st or an April 1 to March 31st. There is no technical season for that.
Right, so
But it's for a calendar year basis.
so the permit is for a calendar year, so
15.
someone could come in with the proper paperwork January 2nd
Could.
and say, I want to get a permit.
They typically don't.
Well, yeah, no, but that's what I was wondering what the time frame was, so.
Yeah,
okay.
it says here, April 15th to October 31st. Time of application, 114.04.
I'm
Page-
sorry. I
page
think
26?
You're correct, yes, Pat, April 15th through October 31st. I was thinking of another license under 11404.
So is
we
that
will-
going to be an issue?
Well, we will have it done by then. We should have it.
No, but I'm saying is, if you have a warm spring and someone wants to throw fertilizer in before April 15th, they
Well, then their
can't.
choice would be that they have the performance bond.
No, even if they,
Dates. Should we
I'm just
change
saying the
dates?
date-wise. Is that going to be an issue?
Yeah, why do we have those dates there?
I don't know why the dates are there. You could just take
You know
them
what I'm
out.
saying? Is,
Yeah.
with global warming, we could be fertilizing in, early March.
Yeah?
And like I always tell Doug Schenecker, he always fertilizes when he has to go somewhere. So he fertilizes my lawn at the weirdest times. So if he has to pay for a fishing trip or something,
He's out there early.
he's probably out there tonight. Wait.
Not had anybody raise that issue, or really haven't had any issues with the date provisions.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's, based on starting, that I don't know that you can start to do applications until, on the pre-emergence, I think they're looking at certain temperatures.
Got a
Yeah.
ground temperature.
Oh, yeah, no,
somewhere.
I understand, but, you're gonna have someone who's gonna say, hey, I can't go out till April 15th, and it's been a warm spring, and the ground temperature's, it's April 8th. You know what I mean? That's what I'm just saying. I mean, do we want to adjust that?
Ken, I've not had anyone raise a question to date in regards to.
And I'm sure,
Maybe they're coming out on April 1st and not saying.
well, that's true. I mean, I don't know who checks when people come out to.
Well, the only thing we would
Isn't that
check,
your, Jim, isn't that, you're supposed to uphold these ordinances?
Haven't had any complaints.
the only thing we would check is if we knew somebody was out there applying that didn't have their license, then yes, we'd get a hold of Jim and make sure that we,
Take the tires off the spread.
Did not know they had to have a license.
confiscate the
kinda
spread.
sort of figured
Actually, it's shutting off the hose. They walk around pretty much with the hose
Yeah,
anymore.
that's true. It is a hose a lot of times.
Depending on the type of application that you're getting. Some is the granular
One
fertilizer,
guy
some
does,
is the
he does
liquid.
granule on mine.
Mudhead does, mine too.
So every year, do you pay that $1,000 back, like after October 31st, and then they pay it again?
No, they give us a sheet of paper. There's no $1,000
No
that they give us.
$1,000. It's just-
Oh, it's
Just a bond.
It's a
Guarantee.
paper bond.
Yeah, yeah. And same with the certificate of insurance, they're just gonna have a document that says that.
Correct.
That they have it and it's up to date, so. Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance amending
Dispense.
Chapter 110, Title 9, but dispense with the reading of the ordinance.
Okay, Dave Brusick has made a motion to dispense with the reading of the ordinance and call a motion to approve the first reading of the new ordinance 114-03.
Second.
Second by Pat Scripture. Any other comment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay. Ken, are you taking this next one?
Yep, I will. I don't have a
You
presentation
looked at me like, what are you talking about?
for you tonight. No, I don't have a presentation for you tonight specifically, but
Then can you go up to the thing and do bird designs or something in the,
under the light table. No, at the January 20th, I went through the whole PowerPoint presentation of the comprehensive plan updates. Chapter 1 for introduction, Chapter 4 for natural resources, Chapter 9 for community facilities and public services, Chapter 10 for public utilities, and then Chapter 11 for implementation. As you said, we took about 6 months of review time at the Planning Commission to review these. January 20th meeting went over the summary of all that information, and it was determined at that meeting tonight to take some final action on the chapters that are to be updated. I included all the chapters once again for you. Did some grammatical and other informational updates. I know Pat Scripture had provided some comments at the last meeting that were included, just a lot of grammatical things and some other errors and notations that were noted. No major updates other than that. So those are the only revisions that would have been made since that original version went out to you. Again, I'm just recommending the amendments be adopted via the resolution, which is attached to the memo, and it does require 4 out of 5 of you on the council to vote in the affirmative for the resolution. It's actually a 2/3 vote, but since we have a 5-person council, we have to have 4 out of the 5. So I'm recommending that the city council adopt the resolution entitled approving the miscellaneous New Prague comprehensive plan updates.
After this is approved, what else do we have? I mean, what else?
That's all the chapters. Then what we do from that point is begin going through some of the implementation sections. We had different things. I think one of the key ones was updating our annexation agreements with Helena Township and Lanesburg Township, and then a number of small minor rezonings and other things like that.
Okay.
Those are really the key items to follow up with here. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Ken?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if Pat gave you some, but I've got some typos and things like that in here. Can I give this to you?
Certainly.
Just typos or?
Well, it's really nothing of any substance.
Okay.
It's just change a form of a word or something like that. It's no substance, though.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I guess I'm going to make a motion to approve the New Prague Comprehensive Plan amendments.
Second.
Second by Dave Brusick. Due to the fact that we're going to have a 4/5, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Councilperson Scripture?
Yes.
Councilperson Brusick?
Yes.
Councilperson Jurek?
Yes.
Councilperson Bartuszczyk?
Yes.
Mayor Nikolai? Yes. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Ken, for all the hard work on this.
I think it's very well done. I read this over and I learned a lot of things about the city and some of the things we have here that I had no clue about. So, good job.
That's good.
Yes.
You only lived here your whole life, right?
Well, just about, yeah.
And you can describe for us the best soils to construct in town?
No.
Or what the predominant soils are?
No, I can't do that. I can read them out of here, but there's so many different colors, I can't even tell you which color is which.
Well, thanks again, Ken, and thank the Planning Commission.
Thank Bishop, put a lot of work into this and other staff as well. So.
Yes, we really appreciate it. I know a lot of communities wish that they had a document like this as thorough as you guys did, so great job. Who's going to take the next one? Park Board recommendation?
I'll give you the overview. The January 14th EDA recommended during their meeting that the Park Board review the merits of acquisition of a couple of parcels up on Main Street near Memorial Park, specifically 510 East Main and 514 East Main. The Park Board did review that topic at their February 10th meeting, and they did ultimately unanimously recommend that the City Council explore the acquisition of those 2 properties, and also to consider utilizing park property acquisition funds as a funding source. It was noted at the time of the discussion, the 2 properties, one being a single-family home located near Park Avenue, which is the entrance to Memorial Park, was currently listed for $999, and the multifamily apartment building is currently listed at $334,000. Both properties are zoned in the RH High Density Residential Zoning District and comprise together a total of 2.68 acres. The Park Board did note, and as I said, that consideration could be made for utilizing a portion of the Park Property Acquisition Fund, which has just under $94,000 in it, noting clearly that that does not equal the nearly $534,000 asking price for both properties, but they also did not specifically note that those would be the prices the council should consider paying. Went into some detail in our discussion at the Park Board meeting regarding the fact that the comprehensive plan for the Memorial Park doesn't note specifically that the park that it needs to be expanded. However, the chapter on that park does note that future improvements could include a band shell among other improvements, as well as noting that the life cycle of city parks needs to be planned for, including for population growth of the city. Memorial Park is a community-wide park which services the entire community, which has obviously continued to grow. We talked about the original 1921 plan of the park, which was included in your packet here, and noting how the park has not grown in size since that point, and obviously our population has grown quite significantly since that point. Park Board talked about how it's a rare opportunity to obtain additional lands potentially for the city's oldest park and provide for additional visibility from Main Street into the park area. And then finally, they noted during their discussion that being residential properties, while a plan's being developed, that they both could be rented for residential purposes should other plans not be developed for the immediate and maybe even the little bit further future. So just looking for a discussion for the Park Board to discuss the Park Board's recommendation, and I would recommend that any specific purchase or appraisal discussion should be conducted in a closed session with the City Council as well. So.
Okay. Duly noted on that. I know we are planning to go into closed session after this meeting, and that is on the agenda. So I guess we'll leave it at that. We want to appreciate the Park Board's recommendation, and we'll take it in consideration to go forward.
I don't know if there's anything that Councilmember Jurek has that she's on the Park Board, and as we take a look at this without going into a lot of detail, that there wouldn't be any reason to go into the closed session if the council didn't have interest. I think as Ken alluded to and staff, as we work with both EDA and the Park Board, is that it's an opportunity to grow and expand the park long term. There is one piece just noteworthy as we were taking a look at it. I think the water line access to our bathroom facility goes through both of these properties from Main Street, and I don't believe we have an easement for that either, do we, Glenn?
Both water and sewer go through there.
Both water and sewer. So when you take a look at that, it's kind of tough to service that, but we've discovered that as we've begun doing some research on that, the bigger piece where you're adding potentially upwards of almost 2.7 acres, it's always easier to take a look at an acquisition when, in the case of the residential of the two properties, it's no longer being lived in at the present time. The other one is acted in a multifamily capacity, but it's a former commercial egg hatchery, if I remember correctly. Yep. And the units in there are somewhat in question, but I believe there's about 7 units in there. And so as Ken alluded to, and I think the mayor touched on it, if you were going to get into any discussions to specifically talk about whether you think you want to acquire it, whether you want to do an appraisal or anything, I would recommend you defer that to the closed session if you so saw fit. Just so we're not tipping our hand in what we want to do, that you have most of the salient information generally on hand, where that goes from a strategy of acquisition, if that's where the council directs us. We just should not kind of convey that at this time.
You have anything to add, Amy?
Just, that it wasn't planned, but this opportunity came along and, let's explore it. It was the concession of the Park Board and see, when else do we get a chance, opportunity to even explore it where there's 2 residents ready to add to the park, especially our main visible park in the city.
Yep. I agree. Okay, good. Thank you. Next, cable. Larry the cable guy.
If you recall, for those of you that were here last August, I think we brought this general information to you that we had received word that there was a proposed transfer of the Comcast cable TV franchise was proposed to at some point be transferred to an entity called Great Land Connections, Inc. You've probably been reading about this activity and this transfer is going on within a number of Minnesota communities that have Comcast. It's part of that old Time Warner and Comcast divestiture with what's going on at the federal level, and there's a requirement that they spin off some of their cable operations to get down to a certain level in the mix. As part of this, we're actually better off than many communities. That in a lot of communities, Comcast is the only cable TV provider, where at least in our case, we've got an alternative choice. But the challenge in the process, and then what's been a challenge to work with, and we're one of the smaller entities in the mix of those Minneapolis, St. Paul suburban communities that are dealing with this issue, is we're one of the smaller ones. But the requirement that an elected official or a council is required to deal with in a transfer or awarding a new franchise is, does the new provider have the legal, the technical, and the financial abilities to provide the services under the franchise agreement? We've kind of piggybacked. Others have paid for the extensive legal work that is analyzed and looked at that, and our cable attorney is Bob Vos, and he is going to be coming out at the March 2nd meeting to walk you through the work and the research that he's done, and to advise you of procedurally whether in his legal opinion that they comply with those requirements. I included, I think, the article in your packet. Maybe I sent it out separately. No, anyway, it was with the city of Eagan. The city of Eagan reluctantly transferred. I thought that was in the packet.
It is.
It is. Yep.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. That you saw some of the sentiment in there is that there's some question that if it's a new startup company, how do they have the financial wherewithal to do it? And that they have the legal and they maybe have the technical capabilities, but the financial's been a real question that's been difficult to answer. And so this is one of the closest ones to us that I could provide an example of that they weren't really excited about having to do it. But the alternative is if they chose not to do it, they potentially would have ended up in litigation for not agreeing to do it. Their cable attorney was Brian Grogan, who would have been one of the other cable attorneys that I would have recommended that you consider using. And so at this point, there's also, he noted in our review under the charter, where it requires language that we handle this by ordinance, is that the law has changed in Minnesota, and no longer is that be required to be done by ordinance. But we thought that the public hearing was still worth having and giving the public a chance to come in and hear. And so we've set it up, and hopefully you will indulge us and adopt the call for the public hearing tonight, because it's in the newspaper. Because of the holidays, we had to get it in order to meet the publication requirements, and calling the public hearing is pretty simple and easy anyway, and so we didn't think you'd mind. But that would be called for March 2nd at 7 p.m. He would be out to walk you through the legal, the technical, and the financial issues, and provide a recommendation as to what we need to do. They need to supposedly have this all done by, I believe it's the middle of March approximately, because they've got to deal with some things on the federal level, and even now there's some question whether they're up against some issues on that front as well. So the best I can tell you or recommend tonight is that you call for a public hearing on the proposed transfer, and Bob Vos will be out on March 2nd to provide that overview and recommendation to you.
When is their contract?
April.
April of 2015, correct?
Yes, that what this would do is this would extend the same terms and conditions essentially for 1 year, that we get through the transfer so that we know who the entity is that we're dealing with, because right now we're in that that transfer process, and that you take the action, and then they've got to go through and get it all executed on their end. And so we've been up against the timing, and that we're really not negotiating for a franchise renewal with Comcast. It's now with this new entity, and they don't have any attorneys or anybody that's available to talk about the new franchise. And so the proposal is basically to extend the same franchise terms and conditions with some slight modifications that he's got in the agreement on the transfer for a period of 1 year.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike? If not, I guess I'll look for a motion to call for a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Amy Jurek, second by Dave Brusick. If there's no other further comment, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? You can put it in the paper now, Mike. You got that, Patrick?
Sometimes you have to go out on a limb and
You got it, you got it. Consent agenda. Anyone have any questions or issues on any items in the consent agenda?
I had called Mike about the invoices.
Where are you?
In that, page 3,
Yep.
Mike, it's like under unallocated, that's like a code error or something.
that should be under the technology department.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And she had one other question under administration on the negative 360 under BevCom. Is BevCom is billing us for cable at City Hall up in the new employee lounge, and so that was finally caught, and they are reimbursing us because that's supposed to be provided free under the franchise.
Oh, I thought, hey, where am I gonna go see my Young and the Restless if I don't get to sneak up there?
You don't have cable up there anymore?
No, we have
That
cable.
they do, but it was supposed to be
They should
free.
not have been billing us for it. You'll have to fight with Glenn to get through the correct lunch hour program, probably.
Glenn has a remote in his pocket, or what
A
is that?
different soap opera that he watches, it might be different than yours.
Darn. Anything else?
No.
I guess I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion by Pat Scripture, second by Mark Bartuszczyk to approve the consent agenda. If there's no other comment, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? It's okay, passes 5-0. Moving right along, the miscellaneous portion. Jim, anything?
I do not have anything.
The city is running smooth?
It is absolutely smooth. Waiting for spring.
What about, we did talk about those those identifications.
I have a call into Ann. She was going to get back to me on how we can do that. My thought is for elected officials, maybe our IDs are up and down, but maybe we'd turn yours just so that you would be distinctive when you're walking around, that it would have a different look to it.
Okay.
But she didn't return a call yet, but I'm thinking we should be able to do that before spring.
Okay. Mike, we, at the Seward County meeting, we were talking about having identification bags in case of emergency for elected officials and department and staff and that stuff. So if there are people from outside our community, like law enforcement officers and that stuff, they have a way of identifying us rather than have to tell them who we are. And I guess it kind of came to light during the Waterville in the floods that they had and that stuff and recommended it, so we kind of just Jim and I were just kind of talking about it and that sort of thing. So that's really where that stems from. So Jim was just looking into it just to kind of come up with a solution to that issue. Thanks, Jim.
Yes.
Glenn.
Just a recap of our baseball committee meeting on February 11th, which I thought went really well. Came up with a list of things that need to be done and what year they'll be done. There was a lot of good discussion on February 11th. We'd made some changes. Our next meeting is
February 28th.
February 25th. And that's when we're really going to kind of tighten up that schedule, the what year it's going to happen, and prices and things like that. So I think it's going really well. The February 25th meeting is going to be held down in the police department's conference room. There's a planning and zoning or planning commission meeting up in the council chamber. So if anybody's interested in coming, make that.
Isn't it at 5 also?
Yeah, it's at 5 o'clock, yes.
It's earlier this time because of, so Tony could watch his son play basketball in
Yep.
the sections. But,
Yep, so February 25th, down in the police department's conference room at 5 o'clock.
I went to that meeting just to see where it was going and also think it's Brian, right?
That's correct.
You know, with their engineering services that they've offered free of charge. And I was very impressed with the packet, you know, the outline that they've already had of what the field would look like and things like that. And so, you know, thank you guys. I know Dave, you sit on it, and Glenn and Mike for spearheading that. It's really, I'm excited for it. And I think, are they still talking coming March 2nd to the council to kind of go over the time frame and also the estimated cost and the funding resources that they're going to look for. So, but very great job, guys.
It's a good group.
Yes, it is. Anything else?
That's it.
You guys must be bored with no snow plowing.
We are. We're getting a lot of other stuff done.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I hope it's good stuff.
It's all good stuff.
I saw that, was it a couple weeks ago, they were trimming the trees in the park?
Yep.
And that stuff, so that's great.
Yep.
Good.
Yep, the guys waxed the floors in City Hall, which
Yeah.
turned out fabulous, so.
Yes. And did I see that Service Master
Yeah.
resigned?
You didn't notice.
Glenn worked them too hard.
Yeah. She's, so I assume you're exploring other options. Yes, okay. Thanks. Ken, anything else?
Oh, no,
Nothing.
it's in this
Nothing?
thing
Okay.
that he sent out, I think.
Yeah, and the update.
Yeah.
Pat, do you have anything?
Oh, I don't.
Okay,
Thank
David.
you.
No.
Mark? Amy?
I do plan to go to that SIMBA meeting in April. RSVP is the 20th, so if anyone else is planning to go.
Okay. Did you to RSVP, do you just let Bruce know, or?
Well, there's an email on the letter,
Okay.
so it just had to be by the 20th.
Yeah, if you send the email to them and then just CC Bruce that he's looking for a few people to go with, if there's 3 or less, then he'll provide, we're going to provide transportation and ride sharing.
Okay. I think that invitation was in the packet, correct?
Yeah, you should have had one
Yep.
individually.
Yeah, I
from
think I
SIPA.
saw mine, so I'll check my calendar, see how it's, but Dave, you're going, and Amy?
Planning on
Okay.
it.
Okay, good. Michael, anything?
The only question was, we got the league legislative conference coming up here early part of March, and if anybody's interested, please let me know so I can get that registration in as well.
Yeah.
A number of you have gone in the past. I don't think it's been as well attended here recently, but chance to meet our new state rep from Elko New Market if you haven't already met him. Annual just meeting with Senator Dahl. We try to do after the league program, which pretty much takes up the morning part of the day. But it's pretty much a full commitment. We leave here at 6 and go in for the early morning breakfast, and then they have sessions all morning, and then we head up to the Capitol or to meet with the senator and representative in early afternoon. So
Is that the 5th or the 4th? 5th?
I believe it's that Thursday,
Oh, that's the
first
5th.
week in March.
And then they have the Seward County meeting they changed to that night.
That night is what, with the new one that just came out?
Yeah, but, it's, okay,
I can send out an email if you have interest, let me know. If not, that's fine as well.
okay. That it? Pat? Huh? Mary Jo? Yeah, darn. I don't have anything else, so I guess we're gonna adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Second by Dave Brusick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. The next meeting we're going to go into is the Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting.